Bob, I have to say that all of us that have been in formation programs here at the seminary have experienced the same ruckus and pandemonium in our lives that you have. And it's what brings us here, or what brought us here, and what helps us to continue our ministry wherever we go. I would now like to call on Betty Lovinus to introduce the winner, the Annecy Award, which of course is named after the city where St. Francis de Sales and St. Jean de Chantal, I'm having problems with names tonight, where St. Jean de Chantal ministered for many, many years together. Betty.
I'm really honored to be here this evening to introduce my friend and my colleague and my companion on the journey, Pat Goose. I nominated Pat for the Annecy Award because I believe discipleship, service, and ministry are a way of life for Pat. As both social worker and minister, Pat has been serving the elderly in this community for 35 years, and she does so with compassion, conviction, enthusiasm, and lots of love. Through the years, Pat has also served in a variety of ministries at St. Pius Parish in Wauwatosa, where Pat and her husband Frank and their children, Frankie's here tonight, have been members for many, many years. And I'd like to share a very condensed version of Pat's story with you. It's pretty hard to cram into 5 or 6 minutes a life that's been so full of giving and serving others. A native of Massachusetts, Pat tells me she came to Marquette University to study social work, but first and foremost, to learn more about her faith and her God. In 1974, Pat graduated with majors in religious studies and theology and minors in education and social work. After teaching for a year and not being too really overly enthused about that as a way of life, Pat went back to her Marquette University advisor, Father Tom Caldwell, and asked, "What now?" He suggested Pat look into the seminary. She began her studies here in 1975 and graduated with a master's in theological studies in 1978, the first lay graduate. When I asked Bishop Skilbo what he remembered about Pat, he said that he remembers her as being intellectually and spiritually inquisitive and always very practical. And I doubt that anyone here would question her practicality after reading her thesis, which was titled, "A Mission of the Church with the Elderly." I think that with the elderly is so important because there is a ministry too. It's ministry, as all of us know, ministry with. And I'm not sure if this next comment demonstrates her practicality, but Pat prides herself in the fact that she only missed one day of class, and that was the day that her son Frank was born. I guess that's about as legitimate excuse for missing classes as one could have. In 1975, Pat began her employment with Interfaith. As director of Crossroads Neighborhood Outreach, Pat served a number of churches of various denominations and 11 different ethnic groups. talk about diversity, she was way ahead of the ballgame, and Pat held that position for 24 years. At present, Pat serves as director of the Family Caregiver Support Network, which provides a myriad of resources and services to both caregivers and care recipients alike. Among them, advocacy on how to maneuver through those very complex rules and regulations that we need to journey through to access services. While preparing this introduction, I also called Carol Eschner, who is the Executive Director of Interfaith Adult Services. She is also Pat's supervisor. Carol was very willing to share a few thoughts with me. Carol believes that Pat is mission-driven, cares passionately for those she serves, is tireless. I think anyone who knows Pat seconds that motion. She always demonstrates a high level of personal integrity and accepts new challenges as they present themselves. Carol particularly commented on Pat's advocacy. She doesn't give up till the job is done. And I so wholeheartedly agree with you, Carol. That is the truth. At St. Pius, Pat has served on the school board, as trustee, on many committees. And in addition to that, she made a mission trip to St. Pius' sister parish in Guatemala, which she said was a life-transforming experience. She has also organized and participated in cleanup missions in Louisiana following Katrina. And this is just a little side note, but just so she doesn't get too bored, I think, or perhaps it's the Franciscan in her, Pat walks dogs for the Humane Society one evening every week. I guess that's good exercise for Pat and for those she walks. Pat not only talks about caregiving, but also walks the talk. She has been a long-distance caregiver for her mom and brother Ron for many years. Because of Pat's concerns for them, they moved to Wauwatosa about 5 years ago. And although Pat is no longer dealing with the challenges of being a long-distance caregiver, other challenges have presented themselves. Another reason, perhaps, why Pat seems to understand what families are experiencing, for without a doubt, she ministers through her own sadness at times and through her own life experiences. Pat said that she was frequently asked when she was right out of college why she chose ministry to the elderly. Pat says she believes the seeds for her love and respect for the elderly were planted as she was growing up and having her maternal grandfather living with her. When I talked with Pat recently about her life and her ministry, trying to get some input for this little couple minutes here, she responded with sincerity and all humility, as only Pat can do. I have only done what I was and have been called to do. And she's done it with such grace. And Pat, I could not help but think of you this evening during Bishop Skilva's homily when he was talking about our call to comfort and our call to encourage. And as he was going through those 10 different aspects of it, I could see you in each and every one of them. And yet we know that it's God who's giving you the encouragement and the confirmation on the other end. Several days ago, I had the privilege of visiting and meeting with Mrs. Dodge, Pat's mom, who is actually a patient at hospice. She is very understandably very, very proud of her daughter. She told me with a twinkle in her eye, and I quote, "All Patty ever wanted to do from the time she was just a little girl was to help other people." And Pat will spend many years of life and ministry doing just that. We thank you and ask God's continued blessing on your journey.